If I were to ask you what is the most hated hero in Overwatch history, I think the answer might be kind of tricky. Roadhog, Sombra, Widowmaker? I'm not sure. But if you were to ask me who the most controversial hero is, by every metric both loved as much as she is hated, the answer is easy, and it's Mercy, with a community that's been around for 9 years since the game's release. And now with the inclusion of hero bans into the game, there's been a lot of people that play the game consistently not able to play the game in competitive mode. And so the question is this a good thing? Is this finally bringing to light Mercy's plight, Mercy's difficulty for so many years? And something that may not be fully understood is that Mercy players, MercyMains themselves, are not happy with her state. So surely there must be some common ground between people that hate Mercy, people that love Mercy, people that play Mercy regularly, and people that just don't ever want to see her in your game. Today we're going to be round 2 of our quote-unquote town hall series, where we take a look at a controversial hero in Overwatch's history and talk with multiple experts on the subject, people that both hate and love the hero, and see if we can find some common ground that may be able to give us some direction with what the character needs moving forward. And surprisingly here, I think the people that both hate and love Mercy are on the same page here. Big shout out to everybody that was involved in this, including r/MercyMains, who gave not only some very insightful and thoughtful feedback, but gave me so much feedback that I wasn't even able to go through all of it on stream. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and fingers crossed for Mercy's future. Let's have a conversation about what does Mercy need changed so that this character doesn't get banned quite so often. And I also want to highlight something here, that while this is painful for MercyMains right now, this is something that should have been happening a long time ago. And I think that this is something that both Mercy haters and Mercy fans will agree on. But one thing that I think Mercy players can agree on is that her current iteration is very lackluster and has been for quite some time. Resurrect is at best, a controversial ability, even within the Mercy community. Her AFK pocket is at best a very controversial opinion within the community for all ranks, leaning way more towards negative. In other words, MercyMains generally are very controversial in res. Most of them don't like the pocket playstyle, which is the most hated playstyle for Mercy. A lot of them have mixed feelings about her lack of utility, and there's even been some questions about her lack of offensive output, which back in the day, that was really part of her identity, and you'd have been, shot at dawn if you said otherwise. But the problem is that she is basically being purposefully gimped because she is so incredibly toxic and abusable when she isn't weak. So she's being banned everywhere. And from what I've been hearing and what I've been seeing, and obviously we don't have hard numbers in this just yet, but it is a bit of an epidemic within the community, and so we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit. The problem with Mercy is that she is a low skill floor character that does not translate very well. Number one, in other words, there are lots of other low skill floor characters. You guys ready for a really nasty one? Reinhardt is a low skill floor character, but his skill ceiling continues to grow. Is it something that's Winston? No, but low skill floor characters are problematic when they don't scale well because they fall off much harder later on. So then you have a character that just isn't viable at all in higher ranks. Not just situational, but just not viable at all. Now I know all what other games do in other games. Yes, I understand that, but it's not a necessity for you to have a low skill floor character that doesn't scale well. The other thing as well, and this one is going to be my most controversial opinion, I think, today, but I think it's an important one because even if I don't agree with it, which I do, but even if you don't agree with it, it is a problem, and it is why she's being banned. I almost said why she's being murdered. I don't know where my brain was going with that. It's because Mercy does not teach transferable skills. You don't need to avoid unique playstyles. Let me give you guys a good example. Venture, okay? Wrecking Ball, Lucio, very unique playstyles. Unique mechanics, projectile speeds, positional choices, lots of unique things that they do. But there is some mechanical demand, even if it is unique. There are a lot of positional decisions. There are unique mechanics to the character, of course, but then there's also some cooldown management and cycling, right? But those things are transferable. If you have a high-level Mercy player, that Mercy player may not have as many positional cooldown management or mechanical skills in comparison to the other supports. Now, I'm not saying Mercy doesn't require position. Again, we're going to avoid hyperbole today. Obviously, high-level Mercy demands a lot. Any high level, but compared to other even unique heroes, she just doesn't. A high level Venture, high level Wrecking Ball, high level fill in the blank. They're going to have more experience with general skills. The reason why this is bad is not that I'm necessarily against one-tricking, but it means that Mercy can be a very swingy character, not just in her kit design. In other words, Mercy's really good in maybe poke situations, very bad in dive. That's a separate issue. But a Mercy player banned out or unable, or two Mercy mains in the same team, is disproportionately more a problem than any DPS combo in the entire game. A Venture one trick with Venture banned is more likely to have transferable skills to other things within the damage cast than a Mercy player forced to play Moira or Kiriko or Lucio or Ana. And that's the problem here. So you have an issue here where Mercy's niche is so unique in such an untransferable skill way that you create problems where that's where a lot of the hate comes from. I'm not saying that we should have homogenized, everything's the same, everything has to shoot, everything has to aim, everything's murder, murder, murder. And we're gonna try to, I think, kind of be sensitive to that opinion here today, and create ways for Mercy to provide value that don't necessarily require mechanics or require unique mechanics. Part of this debate is pointing out the reasonable concerns as well, right? There is nuance here. And so we have to find out. So Valkyrie boring ult to play. A lot of this is more opinionated here. So this is just some of these are more my opinion at the time. Low direct impact in the battlefield, very little transferable skill. Movement has gotten easier. I'm sure we'll talk a great deal about movement today. So the rework we talked about, reversion of movement to encourage skill nuance. I'm always a fan of movement, especially if that movement is skillful. So I don't really have a problem with that. We talked about Res being a projectile, an ultimate that doesn't cancel GA, can be blocked by shields. That was me cooking, trying to keep Resurrect into the game. Res is a pre-buff that lasts for 2 to 3 seconds, but expires, so the timing of a Res is being utilized on a target that then can expire if you get the timing of it wrong. Ult that supercharges easy to generate, boost ability slightly for 3 to 5 seconds. We're just kind of, again, I'm not going to sit here and defend every single one of these, whether these are good or bad. These are just spitballed ideas we're going to throw out there. Projectile speed of her bullets increased, clip is much smaller, maybe damage increase, longer reload, discourage using it often, but allowing it to be situationally useful, whereas her pistol right now is almost so situational that it's kind of silly to even see it as an interesting part of her kit. Change damage boost to something that is a little bit more unique or dynamic. So the problem with damage boost is that, especially with how difficult and unrewarding it is to move with Mercy right now, it's more used on damage healers that are holding safer angles. It is not broadly as useful as things like movement speed or cooldown reduction or reload or clip or anything else that you would do. So you can kind of have to utilize your alt fire, we'll just call it, instead of your damage boost, to be more thoughtful about who you're using it for. Maybe different compositions that Mercy otherwise wouldn't be good at. Now it actually makes a little bit more sense. We've also talked about resource meter, just so that you're not infinitely pocketing something. Healing beam decays on singular targets, maybe from a higher healing to a lower healing with an internal cooldown. We've talked about even damage boost applying overhealth. Angelic boost, a cooldown for extended movement range, small heal over time. Does it heal more to slow decay rate? Was there anything else in here? I think that's mostly it. Oh, weird ideas. Staff, using your staff for melee. You can GA in the air, so you can throw a soul out on a cooldown that allows you to GA to somebody that's not even there. So you can throw out a body basically to slingshot off of. So you actually throw out something to GA to. That's not an actual person. And then I guess a more current iteration, oh my hair jump scare. Wait, why is this the most replayed? Is it because it's Genji? Wait, what is my mouth doing? Ooh. Okay, and then Mercy here, this is more kind of like the current iteration of Mercy, not quite so pie in the sky. Most replayed is Mercy, that's crazy. There's the community right there. What was the Mercy one? Where are we at? Shifting damage boost to partial speed boost, less damage boost. Again, more dynamics with how you can use things. Gavin actually made fun of my hair. I love that. Thank you so much. Well, I guess it wasn't technically making fun, but one of us decaying overheal but disappears. So another one was like you damage boost a target to give them overhealth, but it decays. Or no, you can. Oh, frick, what was it, chat? I think you can, no, you can heal somebody to overhealth. But if you pivot to damage boost or speed or whatever else, the overhealth disappears. So it actually rewards you for moving around the battlefield, utilizing your movement to give everybody a little bit of overhealth, right? Like it's kind of like overpacking with Brigitte back in the day. But it means you can't keep permanent overhealth on somebody that you're damage boosting because then that would be broken. That's enabling the pocket playstyle. So if you damage boost, they lose their overhealth. Something along those lines. Flash heal, we talked about slow is bad. I believe that has been addressed. Some sort of wing or staff attack thing. This is where I talk about like more offensive pressure as I'm about to punch the screen, but maybe something that is unique to Mercy's hero identity. Something that isn't just pull out the gun and shoot, but something that allows her some offensive or dueling pressure, something that is unique to her and to her current visual identity. Explosive souls, unironically, that would cost you your resurrect, but unironically, obviously you'd have to tune the damage, but it's interesting. It's weird, and I think that's something that may be worth conversing about. We already talked about this one already, basically dropping a soul for repositioning on cooldown, not permanent. So soul that only has like 3 or 4 seconds. You throw it, you can fly to it and bounce off of it if you want to. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now. I'm just like, listen. Look me in the eyes, okay? Some of you guys in chat, I'm not gonna say the misogyny word, okay? But some of you guys in chat are so bitter and angry and hate Mercy and Mercy players so much. You don't want a rework to succeed. You don't want a rework to succeed. You want Mercy to stay miserable and awful. She doesn't deserve a rework. She doesn't deserve love. Every change, whether it's a mechanic or a new utility or making the character stronger or whatever, you don't want that. You want her to suck, and you want her to suck forever. I'm not saying it's sexism at all. I'm just saying that you've been burned so many times by this annoying, frustrating to play with and against hero that you just want her to fail. And I'm not even blaming you for that. I get it. I understand. It's personal. But this is also the future YouTube video, right? Don't sit here and rain on people's parade trying to fix a problem with solutions that maybe you haven't fully thought out, or that maybe you don't fully agree with, or maybe you don't fully understand, because these people play the game too. And as long as we're being productive and admitting the weaknesses and problems of the character, your opinion is just an opinion. And so don't go, oh, Mercy doesn't, now can you imagine how cancer, all the bronze MercyMains exploding souls. Shut up. We're trying to fix the problem. Some of you don't want this to succeed. Some of you don't care if Mercy is forever bad. You just prefer to complain about the 1 in 20 games where you have a MercyMain, and you can type angrily about it to your friends. That's okay. I understand. You're frustrated. You deserve to be frustrated. She's been a plague. I think if you honestly had to pick Overwatch's most visibly problematic character in history, it's easily been Mercy. Maybe Roadhog's up close, but it's Mercy. It's definitely Mercy. I mean, if you go back to Overwatch League Season 1, all the pro players, what's your most hated hero? Everyone said Mercy. And this is the pros. 2007 freaking team. So, yeah, Sombra for different reasons. So, I understand, but fixing a problem is experimentation. It's trying new things. It's being sensitive to both sides of things. So, it's in your best interest that these conversations are being had. Yeah, I mean, again, in terms of Sombra versus Mercy, let's put it this way, most controversial. I think Sombra's just hated, and there aren't enough Sombra mains for people to really care. So certainly the most controversial. Because, again, we talked about it earlier, the popularity versus hateability, it is at the top, you know what I'm saying? So these are just some of the ideas that I've spitballed. I have not spent near enough time brainstorming Mercy, because, frankly, when I'm doing perk fixes or hero reworks, Mercy might be the top, but she's still one of many heroes that we were thinking and trying to figure out. And so today we're going to try to kind of expand our thoughts here. And why I'm doing this, I think it's helpful as a community to kind of, to have open conversation and honest conversations. I walked away from the Sombra conversation understanding the Sombra mains more, and I hope that it was vice versa. It's also personal satisfaction, because it's just satisfying to feel like, oh yeah, I feel like we kind of maybe not know for sure what needs to be done, but have some good ideas. And this is just stuff that I enjoy talking about. You know what I'm saying? So let's start with Realth here. Again, if you guys don't know, Realth is a Overwatch coach like myself and amateur game critic. And he has very different opinions than mine on most things, which is why I really respect his opinion, because he comes in from different perspectives. He's done a lot of critiques on 6v6. He's a big 6v6 guy. Done some stuff on Marvel Rivals and a lot of other stuff. And I believe he's even done a bunch of reworks of individual characters as well. Okay, so this is Realth. What do you see is the vision of Mercy as a hero? Keep in mind, this vision can be different from how the developers may currently see her. Let me zoom in just a wee. Okay, Mercy should be a hero with the highest decision density in the game. In other words, multiple different things you could be doing at any point in time. Which one makes the most sense? Her beam priority and color should be a constant shifting minigame, and she should have to actively juggle them for maximum value. The decision between damage boost and healing should be roughly equal weighted in terms of value. She should also require a constant understanding of the playfield in order to optimize these beam priority choices by making calculated risk decisions on GA usage. That's a current problem with Mercy right now, is that a lot of her movement is wasted because you were not rewarded or encouraged to move. This was actually... I was in the vocal minority of people, don't hate me, chat. I don't think moving her to 250 HP was smart. I think that, or 225, I'm sorry, because it actively punished you for actively taking risks. I think there were other things that they could have done to nerf Mercy's output, but I think actually making her more fragile was the wrong direction with the mobility that she has. In order to skirt as close to the line as possible, and the movement should be in depth enough that this process feels mechanically rewarding. What do you like about Mercy's design? I can't think of anything about her kit that is currently in its best historical state. Youch. What do you like about Mercy's current design? Skill to value curve. Okay, spicy. I told you guys, Realth is not gonna agree with necessarily common opinions. He just doesn't care. So I think that's very respectful whether you agree or not. Mercy cannot be fixed until her movement skill curve is addressed. When Overwatch 2 launched, they gutted all planning, prediction, mechanical skill, timing, and anything else interesting about her movement by allowing her to instantly zip in the opposite direction by looking that way and by automating the super jump. So basically, they simplified. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there are going to be a couple of you MercyMains out there that are way smarter than I am, and probably Realth at how this movement is actually executed. So this is going to be done with an asterisk of how the movement is done, and I'm sure that there are far smarter people about me, but we're just going to read it and take it as it is. Overwatch 2 Mercy has a skewed survivability curve where low and mid-rank players just don't even bother shooting her anymore. Yeah, situationally true. The other thing is that because of how she often is rewarded with positioning, she is rarely even visible all the time. Very fair. Either you're a projectile character that can't shoot her at all, or you're a hit scan character that just can't see her. And therefore, she has a skewed value curve where more power cannot be given to her at lower and mid ranks since she has so much of her budget into survivability. It's true. A lot of her value is her survivability in lower ranks. She's currently as boring and interactive to play against as Lifeweaver, and obviously, Chad, as we've seen, Lifeweaver over time has become more damage and more utility focused and less healing, which I think has evolved the character in a much more interesting way. I think they could go further on that. I've already had a couple of videos and posts about what I think they could do with Lifeweaver continually, but we'll keep going. Go back and look at some old Overwatch 1 clips. The difference in mechanical and game sense demand for her movement is insane. On the surface, Mercy just looks like she's received buffs, and as the commenter prove, movement is the part that people like about her kit. So her entire kit being gutted to make way for the lowest skill floor entry to the hero possible isn't something anybody talks about, because people are just happy that there's more movement. Okay? The truth is the level survivability was always in the kit, but just previously required higher skill to access. Super jump was harder to do back in the day. A lot of the movement with Mercy was harder to do. I am not the person to ask if the current iteration of Mercy movement is good, or if the old iteration, or what the optimal iteration. I'm going to be hopefully letting Skiesti kind of run with that later today, but it is true that her movement is more accessible today, has probably a lower ceiling than it has at times past, and is such accessibility that it's not meaningful. And the reason I also bring that up is because I do want to highlight that, again, a lot of this is due to the fact that Mercy doesn't move very often, already as it is. Aside from this, her skill to value expression from her healing has been reduced massively by the larger health pools, and it genuinely matters less than ever what target you're healing. So Realth is also very anti-Season 9. We won't get into that today, but we'll keep going. Long story short, the ability to output aggressive pressure with her healing has been effectively removed from the game. The pressure you can put out by increasing poke DPS uptime with Healing Beam has been decreased because the DPS passive and higher health pools massively increase the time required to heal these players to an acceptable level before re-peaking. So you're basically maybe stuck on healing a target for a little bit longer. A Mercy Pocketed Ash previously had 80% uptime. Now they have around 60% uptime. This is a lot of aggressive healing pressure. Sources. I would like for him to elaborate on this one a little bit more, but we'll keep going. Essentially what this means is it just means when you take poke, it may take you longer to get that target back to full again, which is... It's a tricky thing because I don't think the concept that people that take damage should be immediately back to full is necessarily a decision that the developers will agree with, because I think it is a conscious choice. The pressure you could put out by extending the tank's pressure cycle by healing them at the right moment has been lowered massively. When tanks have a higher percentage of the resources into innate health, raw healing numbers, even if they keep them on armor, matters less for extending the cycles. In other words, it's harder to keep up a tank because as the tank health pools grow bigger, more of the survivability comes through just the raw chunk of HP and less to do with the healing sustain. Again, that is a specific and deliberate design choice by the Overwatch 2 developers to not encourage raw sustain. Raw sustain is not by definition brainless. It can be very brain full, but it does punish supports that rely more on that situational healing for their output of value. For example, a lot of the utility that we see right now from a lot of support heroes, whether it's Kiriko or Ana or whatever, fill in the blank here, even Juno, is not through raw healing, but a lot of utility. Overwatch is much more utility focused. Anti-nade, speed ring, Suzu, damage output. Raw sustain just doesn't matter as much as it used to anymore, and a lot of that is due to the higher health pools. A Reinhardt with an Ana and Mercy pocket previously would be able to put out significantly more pressure than without the Mercy. Now they don't put out much more pressure at all, and I think the idea that he's trying to get at here is that because the Reinhardt has a larger health pool, you're basically demanded to yellow beam a tank. You don't really have the opportunity to do anything but. The pressure achievable from both these healing modes has been replaced by much stronger bias on damage boost, which has always been, again, why? Utility focused, which has always been the thing considered the most annoying in her kit. So this kind of gets to the crux of the issue, right? Where in a 6v6 post-season 9 or pre-season 9 Overwatch, healing mattered more. In a post-season 9 5v5, utility and damage matters more. And as it stands, Mercy does not have utility apart from damage boost. Resurrect is an exception, of course, but that has also been the part of utility that has fallen off the most in Overwatch 2. And damage boost and pocketing a DPS that is more static, that doesn't demand movement, as Realth says, is generally the most controversial part of her kit, both outside the Mercy community, but also inside the Mercy community, from my knowledge, from my understanding. I think Resurrect, Healing, Movement, Flight, Valk, those are more controversial. A lot of people like them more, but the Pocket AFK damage boost playstyle is not something that, to my understanding, Mercy players enjoy. And as somebody that used to play a solid amount of Mercy early on in her career, I would say anywhere like 50 to 100 hours, I think. I might be just making that up. But I got forced into Mercy for a long time, and I realized I like healing more than I like damage boosting, because it sounds better. It requires more movement. It's just more fun to heal with Mercy, and it's just not necessarily better, and that's the problem. It's way more satisfying to heal with Mercy. The decision when playing Mercy nowadays is to sustain with healing, providing very little value at all, and basically being AFK or being able to damage boost and actually do something proactive. But you don't actually choose whether you have to sustain a match. The playstyle isn't active at all, and the decision of beam juggling is simply being made up for you most of the time. In other words, does this person need healing? Okay, no, damage boost. That's basically it. It's a very linear decision a lot of the time. Again, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with all this, but this is Realth. He is going to state his opinion clearly, and it's worth considering. Previously, you could feasibly do an unranked GM with damage boost unbound. Now there's no chance of that ever happening. Skill expression and extra value achievable from that skill expression have been extracted from the kit at almost all levels. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about the movement tag, but my workshop code is res enabled, charging Valk, and so on. Okay. I'm gonna turn on the light here 1 second, chat. And that was Realth. Thoughts? So with the absence of a debate partner right now, what do you guys think so far? MercyMains, non-MercyMains, chat, YouTube, Twitch. We'll take a few minutes, and then maybe we'll get to Niandra's notes. What do you guys think? Crucially, there's no real clear solution here, and I don't think you necessarily need to propose a solution. I think if you can accurately describe the root of the issue, a skilled developer team should have some concepts or some ideas. Awkward actually tried an Mercy unranked GM and he failed. Yes, I was aware of that. That's crazy. Disliking damage boost seems unusual to me. To my knowledge, it is very commonly disliked. Rework the character provides some utility. Love you.
Love you.
Drive safe, please.
I might get a thunderstorm. So.
Yeah, I saw. Thank you. Yeah, I think that some form of utility is really important for Mercy. That is, I think, maybe the crux of the issue. Some form of utility that will encourage you to utilize her movement. Feels like maybe the crux of the issue. We get lost in how much healing, how much damage boost. Do we like Valk? Do we like Res? But I think the crux of the issue is what utility can we give Mercy, whether that's damage or anything else, movement speed or overhealth, that will encourage her to move. Maybe that is the root of the issue. Am I using an AI voice in the stream? Yes, this is an AI voice.
The utility and damage opportunity cost has always been the reason why I hated playing with Mercies. It's why the choice to ban is so easy. Every other option feels like you have another puzzle piece.
Yeah. I haven't read through all the comments. I haven't read through any of the comments yet. I'm going to try to get through some of them. Actually, a large portion of them in a little bit, but not right now. So I think there's some questions about making her movement more skillful and more a higher ceiling for that movement, and I would agree with you. But I think the key thing has to be, it doesn't matter how good you make her movement if there's no reason to utilize that movement. And I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but it really is, there is less chance to, there's less motivation to move, right? Question though, Realth and I have scrambled to think of any utility that doesn't destroy her hero identity. Yeah, I mean, I understand it. It is tricky, but I think we have a here's the other thing too. I think Mercy, I would describe as more of a pacifist in some way. Maybe her hero at fantasy. Maybe I'm not a wizard when it comes to this stuff, even though I love this game. But it doesn't mean that she can't pack a punch when she needs to. And I also don't think that we always have to look at utility through just a raw damage lens either. The reason that it's frustrating to play versus Mercy, as has been described, is that she doesn't really have very often a motivation to put herself in risk. I think, okay, this is going to be maybe an uncomfortable truth here, okay? I think this is really important to talk about. For most people, most players, maybe this is universally true. I don't necessarily know, but in my experience working with all people, casual and non-casual, fun is associated with risk. You cannot have an engaging, competitive experience without risk. It's just not possible. Even very casual games need risk, fear of failure to succeed. Even non-mechanically demanding characters. So there will be some that say, oh, Mercy, we shouldn't be forced into an aggressive playstyle. Again, what do you mean by aggressive? That's a conversation. It doesn't necessarily mean doing damage. But I think the core of the problem is Mercy has to be reintroduced to the value of risk. If there is no tangible, measurable risk for Mercy, the character will not only be frustrating to play versus, be frustrating to play as, and continue to not appeal to a lot of people. I think that last point is okay. But if you don't have risk, that's the least interesting part of Mercy. You must be encouraged and forced to take risks as Mercy and then be rewarded for those risks. It's just a general truth of whenever we compete at something. It's like people enjoy risk. People enjoy making a calculated decision, especially if you can mitigate those risks with good decisions, good positioning, good mechanics with your movement. I think as a lot of Mercy players have talked about, I think the reason why a lot of them love Resurrect is not because it's Resurrect necessarily, but because it's the most risky aspect of her kit. It's thrilling to get a difficult res off, especially when you do it mechanically well. When you utilize your bounce, your float, or you do it quickly behind, that's exhilarating because it's the only thing that generally consistently demands risk. So Mercy players want risk because that's just human nature. So we need both a motivation to take risk, and then we need Mercy to be able to survive that risk. You get what I'm saying? So we're looking for more like spiritual changes here. Soul changes, maybe would be the more apt description. So we're looking for, number one, utility that demands movement. Actually, number one is going to be something that encourages and motivates and rewards risk. And number two, probably following off of that, is utility that encourages movement, because that is probably where that risk would most comfortably come from. And then maybe number 3, rewarding her ceiling of movement or expression through that playstyle. And notice that we haven't said damage, said debuff, or anti-heal, over health. It could be in a lot of things. It doesn't have to even be traditionally mechanical things. Because the funny thing about Mercy, as we said, about the lack of transferable skills, hey Arceus, is positioning for risk management, cooldown management that will likely come as a result from that, and just generally moving and forcing, even though there's no immediate mechanical transferable skills, immediately, that's more like every other support hero in the game. Immediately. Right there. Think about it from a Brigitte standpoint. Brigitte is basically nothing but risk management or positioning balance. Lucio, right? Heck, even Moira, right? Moira has her own can of worms, but like a lot of it is kind of like how far can I push this, you know? So there you go. And keep doing so while, if we'd like to, keeping true to the simplicity of the floor.
Is the limited nature of damage boosts.
Yes. Yes. It is not a good utility by itself.
Team, anyone can take advantage of.
Yes, I agree. University of damage boost is hit or miss, because even if it is technically universal, maybe it is too high value in situations that don't demand risk. Like what came first here, the chicken or the egg? Is it the lack of survivability or movement capability that prevents Mercy from using her damage boost aggressively? Or is damage boost being used passively just too good? Maybe it's both. You see, that's the reason why Mercy is really good at pocketing damage boosts on poke characters, is because not only is it consistently good, but it means that Mercy never, ever, ever has to flex her muscles. Mercy mains atrophy, quite literally. Actually, quite not literally, but it just felt good in my head saying that, so quite literally. I don't know where we're going with this. Literally. Manosphere. Remember, we got to construct our own manosphere, guys. That's on our checklist for today. We got to continue to develop the manosphere. Niandra. If you guys don't know Niandra, one of the OGs of Overwatch. Been around for forever. And Mercy Wizard. Thank you for the subscription, BMO. Congratulations on your 6 months badge. Also has some really thoughtful videos on Mercy rework stuff as well, which we will, I encourage you guys to check out here. Let me zoom in here and read Niandra's message here. All right, here we go. Making sure I'm not doing anything crazy here. Okay. What do you see as the vision of Mercy as a hero? I like when Mercy is mobile. We're going to see a consistent theme here. Volda1, thank you for the sub. I want to use that mobility to get a good view of the battlefield so I can make decisions based on the current moment. What do you dislike about Mercy's current design? Hang on a second. I actually need to make sure. Did I miss it earlier? No. Okay, this is it. What do you dislike about Mercy's current design? I know it's controversial, but I really like damage boost. You got to keep in mind a lot of the mid-low players and more casual Mercy mains don't use it that much or very effectively, meaning at least somewhat it's a way to tell the difference in skill level between Mercy players. Looking out for your allies making plays and flicking your beam onto them feels great. So this kind of goes into what Realth is talking about. Situational damage boost feels really good. That being said, I also don't want to be naive. I know that oftentimes the most effective strategy is to just blue beam your Sojourn and occasionally help other people. So do you notice a difference in how damage boost is being utilized here? Niandra likes damage boost as a situational triage, right? Of who needs it and quickly changing. But how it's often used is more of a one decision and you run it down and you stick with it. You understand what I'm saying? So we can be honest and say that damage boost is one of the more utilities that feels harder to justify being shared globally, but we can also not be silly and say that damage boost is an unredeemable thing as its own. Maybe damage boost needs decay. Maybe there needs to be a cap. Right? There's lots of ways that we can continue to tweak with that. We'll move on. Too many Discord notifications. Welcome to my life. Legitimately. When I took a week off for Christmas, I came back and I had to answer over 100 messages. I also think there's a difference between a damage boost focused playstyle and a pocket one, and that the former is definitely more enjoyable. Okay. I remember ages back I did a little response to some of your Mercy ideas. I know you discussed the idea of replacing damage boost, which is a tough one because it's generally what Mercy does instead of providing damage, so you need something that has really high uptime. I did appreciate your idea about having multiple beams to choose from like attack speed or movement speed or whatever, since that would retain a decent level of decision making, which is a big thing I want from Mercy. One thing that's very mildly frustrating with Mercy is that she gets less ult charge or perk points from damage boost than she does from healing. Didn't know that? Good to know. Which means I've had games where I'm behind an enemy Mercy that's heal botting, even though I believe my B management has taken more thought. Admittedly, you gotta be careful here, because if your team can't hit any shots, it might fall behind, but I'd like some rebalancing here regardless, I think. I also know that damage boosts in 5v5 are just generally a delicate thing. I remember in the early days of Overwatch 2 when Zenyatta was really oppressive, people would be like, Discord Orb is unhealthy compared to Mercy's damage boost because of X and Y. And then when Mercy was a problem, people were like, Mercy's damage boost is unhealthy compared to Discord Orb because of X and Y. That's a classic community problem. If you guys are ever active in r/competitive Overwatch, the competitive Overwatch subreddit, I love those guys. I'm not trying to throw everybody under the bus here, but they go through cycles of hating one character and saying, making up these dramatic things, and then they move on, and then, oh, that character's not that bad. This is the new, Satan, and they rinse and repeat. And that's just communities as a whole. That's just a very small example of it. And my example is to prove that even competitive communities are very vulnerable to heavy biases that cycle. Visibility, recency bias, right? Also, Resurrect, I could really go either way on. The biggest reason I'm not completely in favor of just scrapping it is because, one, super jump presses are really fun, even though I'll happily admit the range can feel terrible sometimes. And two, it's one of the only ways to counter one-shots like Widow Headshot. Fair, right? We've talked about it. Mousing for the sub. Finally, from Niandra, everything considered, though, I do wonder if the developers would even want to change Mercy. And we talked about this, right? There's a large percentage of people that like Mercy. Woo! But the problem is the large percentage that don't. And so have bans forced their hand, or are Mercy players going to find a different game mode, or maybe just a different game? Maybe this is obvious or dumb, but I quite firmly believe that support is the most popular role by a decent margin, surpassing DPS even. Ooh, hot take, but could be correct. I don't know if Gavin is here, but I do know support players are a large percentage of players within Overwatch, at least. And I don't think it depends on rank. Okay. And also the biggest spender in terms of cosmetics, which I don't mean in like a derogatory way. I think that is certainly backed up by the skins that are released. I mean, just look at the percentage of Kiriko and Juno and Mercy skins, and that's just 3 of them, and you pretty much have your decision made for you. Today is not the day where we'll delve maybe into the demographics of what that means, but it doesn't really matter. Mercy players buy skins. In a way, the devs should be proud that they've managed to make a role that feels super varied in terms of playstyle and feel really, really good. Too good, some may say. Although I do suspect that there may be some congestion issues around Plat Diamond and 6v6 Open Queue, where there's just an insanely high number of support players only, and so on. So, we won't go down the rabbit hole there. Thank you very much to Niandra for that. That was very insightful. And you can kind of see some of the issues that we talked about, we kind of hinted at, kind of raising their head, which was consistency of that demand for utility. Not necessarily, in Niandra's opinion, damage boost in a vacuum, but damage boost in its implementation, which is more static. And then obviously how that trickles down to how perks are being utilized and even beyond that. Then there's the question about, should they even change Mercy? Would that kill the cash cow? But is it already happening? What can we do to that encourage people to keep playing, but don't destroy? Like we have to be balanced here, right? Stargrain, think of the sub. Like we can afford to be more patient and thoughtful about the implementation of these things here, because I think one of the misconceptions about hero design is that it's done in giant leaps. I think it is very possible, and we've seen many examples of hero design happening in small steps. So very quietly, Lifeweaver has been one of those characters who has significantly improved the quality of playing versus and with since his release, right? Still annoying to play with, but I would significantly prefer Lifeweaver playing with and against now than ever before. Same thing goes with, you ready for this one? Malga. He's still obnoxious, and there's certain little aspects of his kit that drive me nuts, but he's way better than he used to be, and not just because he's weaker. Another hot take maybe here, but Pharah rework. Pharah can still be frustrating to play versus, but at least she doesn't hover in the sky infinitely, and she has more counterplay and more maps where she's more flexible. And so for me, I'm less concerned about what's going to solve Mercy, if anything will ever solve Mercy, right? I'm more concerned about like what would be a logical, safe, strategic one step in the right direction. That's what I want to see. And I think everybody that plays with or against Mercy probably wants to see the same thing too. Yeah, you could technically perfectly hover with Far, but you got to get my point. So, number one, how can we introduce risk? How can we introduce risk? Number two, how can, by introducing risk, is that going to be through encouraging utility that demands movement? Those are kind of my points so far. Let's read r/MercyMains. We got about 30 minutes before Yeatle jumps on here and gives us an earful of what he freaking hates about Mercy. And I want to highlight something today, guys. This may not be the most effective content piece ever, because if you haven't noticed already, you're noticing the same points coming up again and again and again. So we're going to come up with some new ideas and some new conversations, get points, yes, but it's not going to be as diverse as you think. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means that everybody's mostly on the same page here, whether you hate or love Mercy. You guys noticing that already? It's got to keep going here. Haven't read these comments. Let's see what we got here. Kind Replacement says, movement, movement, movement! People just don't seem to understand how fun her movement can be. It's what makes her so unique, while every other movement-related characters are independent. The fact that Mercy's requires her teammates is what makes it fun and satisfying. In a way, I will interject here, and the fact that it's constantly changing. You can't memorize rotations. It's a live time battlefield that you are adapting to. The fact that Mercy requires teammates is what makes it fun and satisfying. Using her GA to survive by moving from one to another is incredibly fun, and the thing I believe I and the most other Mercy mains would miss the most if it were changed. I remember back in Season 3 with the GA nerf how absolutely devastated we were because it really is a big part of her kit. I personally don't like the pocket playstyle. I don't think Mercy should be a character who just stays on a DPS the whole game. I think she should have more chances and reasons to utilize GA so that she could help the whole team. Also, the most fun I've had with her is using the crepuscular circle power in Stadium. Just having the opportunity to pull out the Glock while still fully supporting the team feels amazing. Next to ults like Juno, Kiriko, even Idiari, who can leave her pylon and go explode the whole new team, Mercy's ult is just awful. I'm not saying that r/MercyMains speaks for the entirety of the Mercy main community, but do you see what I'm saying? I've not read these comments. And here we go. Fully agree with everything. This is an awesome take, yada, 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 yada. Okay, good stuff. So in this iteration, there is a cry for more movement demand, less pocket, and maybe even some offensive output. Now, there isn't necessarily a solution about how to utilize that utility, how to reward movement. But again, we don't need to. We don't have, I mean, I'm going to love to theory craft and think of some ideas. Maybe we've already done some of those, but it could be a reasonable complaint that really gets to the core of the problem. And I think this does that very well. All right. Ideally, I'd like the developer team to stop being so afraid of the movement as her kit and enable playstyles outside of pocket and hit, scan, poke. I might stop by to listen to you yap if I get the chance. Thank you, Spooky Action. Well, here we go. I hate the hard pocket playstyle. I much prefer team-based supporting and bopping around where I'm needed, but it's hard to deny how useful the enabling of a cracked DPS is. Beam juggling in Overwatch 1 was peak for me. It's even better with her current movement. I just want to be a zippy triage unit. I do not want to stand behind cover, pocketing Sojourn. Yes, this. I like Threads of Fate in Stadium that lingers her beam on a previous target. Adds a tiny bit of multi-healing boosting capability that she lacks without feeling. So there's your utility right there. So she's rewarded for moving because you can actually increase your healing per second if you move around frequently. Hey, Swinky Tiger. Nice. That's right. I didn't even recognize that. Does it punish mobility and hopping around from person to person, which the most of us have fun doing? Yeah, and there's definitely a theory here where Stadium is them experimenting with things more wildly, and that's kind of like globally here, but yeah. That's a tough one. I'd like to see more buffs to heal boost for new target, but that doesn't feel like a perfect solution. Maybe an AoE tied to a swap. I'm not entirely sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll look at some of the more controversial ones too. I don't want to just look at the popular ones. We might look outside the box too. But I will say that, you know, ultimately our goal is to try to get to a cross section of the Mercy community, even if it's not representative of the majority. It is, we do want this is a popularity contest to an extent. As long as the popularity contest agrees with what an objective, obviously, I'm perfectly objective, guys. No biases here. Opinion comes from, that's the best of both worlds. Something that makes the Mercy players happy, the vast majority, and something that from a more analytical standpoint, makes sense, right? I'm not saying my opinion is free from bias, that's the joke, but I guess my point being is that, like, if it's also popular, that's great. We only really have problems when things that are loved are also hated about Mercy's kit. And I don't think that's as much of the case, is kind of my point here. Like, just because a lot of people think something doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It might be right. They might be right. They might be onto something here. All right, we got Swanky Tiger's post here. My stream isn't always objectively correct. Well, I'm faking humility. Obviously, you guys know I'm always correct, like everything. Favorite content creators. I'm a Flex support, and to be honest, main Ana more now, but I did start on Mercy, and I still love her. I've been here for years. Okay. Things we love about Mercy. Mobility. Almost every dedicated Mercy loves Mercy for her movement. Her movement is her skill expression, her fun factor, and what sets her apart from others in the support cast. I'm going to go ahead and say something here, chat, that if you think about it, it's true. We've said this a few weeks ago, but I'm going to bring it up now because it's pertinent. Positioning is the most underrated fun thing in Overwatch. And probably a lot of games in general. If you love Spider-Man and Marvel Rivals, you love positioning. If you love Genji, if you love Lucio, and if you love Wrecking Ball, you love positioning. If you love Mercy, you love positioning. Now kiss. No, my point being is that, like, literally the same reason why MercyMains love Mercy is why Genji players love Genji. Now, the shooting of the shurikens, that's where they differentiate, but it is the positioning. It is the positioning aspect that is very satisfying. Freya as well. Yes, exactly. There's nothing different than liking Genji versus Mercy's movement and positioning. It's kind of the same thing, you know? Now, how it's actually executed, again, that's where they differ, but this is good. This is normal. We see this again and again with Overwatch, where people love these type of heroes. I just thank Rooster. Thank you, Moondoggy. Damage boost enabling plays. Yes, it's a touchy topic. Damage boosting existing means natural breakpoints and balancing around the possibility of them being 30% better, but pushing an off angle with your Sojourn, boosting a triple beam Symmetra, or flying to your far to help her secure a kill is truly so fun and core to Mercy's identity. In this sub, we're basically all in the competition to get the high damage boost, beam and top. But notice this here. Pushing. Boosting a situational triple beam Symmetra. Not just a Symmetra, but a triple beam Symmetra. Or flying to a Pharah to help secure a kill. So 2 of these involve movement. Well, actually, let's say one of these involves movement. One of these is a situation, and one of these is both. You notice the consistent theme here. Even when it is damage boost, as Niandra was saying, it's the situational damage boost that feels so incredibly good. I remember way back in early Overwatch 1, there were Mercy guides out there. And one of the very commonly said Mercy tips, which was good, was to damage boost your Reinhardt during Firestrike. This was back in the day when healing tanks was more important. The healing percentage mattered more on a Reinhardt's health pool. There was less AFK pocketing on DPS. And finding those moments to damage boost your Rein when that Firestrike hit was legitimately good to pay attention to. That's just changed. Back in the old days. So things were mixed on. Resurrect. This checks with my experience as well. Sure, the adrenaline of going for risky res. Ha! Ha! What did we say about risk? It's glorious, but this is the longest cooldown in the game, and the average Mercy gets it 4 per 10 minutes. And most of those are probably not even risky. We know it's frustrating to play against, many of us would like a shorter but less impactful cooldown to replace it, but preferably something that still involves risk. Valkyrie. I personally love Valkyrie because I love high mobility, but many here would like Valkyrie replaced with an ultimate that can actually save your team and or consistently turn team fights. So for context, from a coach's perspective, like Mr. Gray, notebook, boring, Valkyrie is it's an ultimate. It's not a super strong ultimate, but it's fine. Valkyrie's value mostly comes through just the raw, sustain, triage, movement, beam, but it is not a very exciting ultimate. It's decent, mostly because of the little boost that it gives in so many different ways over a long period of time. It's 15 freaking seconds, I believe. I mean, that's just insane. But it is not a very exciting ultimate. And it doesn't really provide you anything that you otherwise wouldn't do outside of actually pocketing people that go in aggressively. But the reason that you can do that is because of the beam length, and not necessarily by it doesn't do anything more outside of like a little bit more healing. Val giving a little bit of overhealing that only sticks for a short period. It could be cool, or some kind of triage healing. Whoops, I clicked the button and it's gone. Okay, boomer moment. Healing. I see a lot of people here want Mercy just have higher healing beam. I personally do not, and think she should always have relatively low healing because there's no downtime. Now, remember, higher healing may or may not encourage Mercy to move around a little bit more, open up different targets you otherwise wouldn't bother supporting based off of Realth's comment, but that probably is not something that will ever be implemented in the game. So I think the developers probably agree with you, Tiger. Yes, thank you for the sub, Prankster. I hate sustain meta. I've seen others say that higher healing is a boring solution, and they want more cooldowns interaction like Flash Heal. Flash Heal is great and fun perk and so on. Yes. Things we don't like. Relying on others to perform, to succeed. I've said it a million times that an amazing Mercy can make a good team great, but you can't make a bad team good. Many of us would like Mercy to have some kind of independent playmaking that doesn't rely on her teammates to perform. Now, this is a really interesting conversation because it's actually way more complicated than people appreciate, and I think it's interesting to talk about. So, number one, you are not stuck in a rank due to your teammates as Mercy. Because Mercy will amplify even a bad team to greater success. Okay? However, number two, if your team is truly outclassed, incompetent, or in a situation where there isn't a solution that they're finding, whether it's a bad map, bad heroes, whatever, Mercy correctly does not have individual potential to make the unbelievable happen. Let me give you guys an example. You have a tank, a team that's going like Roadhog EDRA or Signet EDRA or Zarya, and they're sitting on the point, watch point Gibraltar, and you're dying over and over again. You can help them do the bad thing as best as you possibly can and do it better than any support. But on Ana, on Zen, on Lucio, sometimes even, maybe not Lucio as much on those, there are, theoretically, you could hit a 5 orb or a nade or a shot or a sleep and just kill 1 or 2 people by yourself. It's possible. It's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. And while a lot of us educational esoteric snots like myself will go, well, you'll never do it, so it doesn't matter. You're not held back by your team. A gold Mercy main is a gold Mercy main, right? She doesn't deserve plat necessarily. However, the potential of that being possible with the hero that you're playing is what keeps people engaged. We know that for a fact. It's a psychological fact. People only disengage when they perceive a situation as unsolvable. You understand? And because Mercy's value ceiling hits a wall that she can't there isn't a way to amplify a completely inept team to a level that's theoretically going to win the game single-handedly like there is with other supports. That just makes people frustrated. Now, I see a lot of people that say, if you want to climb fast, you should just pick a carry character. That is actively bad advice. It is bad advice. Because it implies that a Baptiste contributes more than a Mercy does. That is not true. What it does mean is it means that in the worst case scenario, Baptiste has a higher potential output of value than Mercy does. Mercy's more in between. Less opportunity to throw the fight, less opportunity to carry the fight. Baptiste has a lot more potential to throw the fight, but a lot more potential to carry the fight, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Mercy's in the gray, Bap's in the black and the white. And most heroes in Overwatch are pretty black and white with their value output. The people that say you should just swap to Baptiste to carry low ranks are the people that have watched unranked GMs and watched top 500 players climb out of bronze like this by just murdering everybody. But that's just not a representative of 99. It's not a representative of anybody in bronze that actually belongs in bronze. To get to that point to where you can mechanically carry fights takes ages, and the skill gap goes accordingly. Now, all that being said, I know some of you are like, well then, Spilo, how come Awkward didn't get to Grandmaster with Mercy? How come there are like very few Mercy players in Grandmaster? That is a third point here, in that Mercy just isn't a very strong character right now, period. Where even if you do squeeze every ounce of value out of her, she's just not very strong right now. At the highest level, she's just not good. Does that mean that you shouldn't play her in gold? No. Plat? No. Diamond? Probably not. Masters? You should probably start thinking about it. She just isn't good. So you can squeeze every ounce of value out of it, but she has a value ceiling that is lower than basically every support right now. Let me give you guys an example. Moira, not a very strong support, but there are significantly more, to my knowledge, more Moira mains in top 500 than there are Mercy mains. In fact, I've coached 2 or 3 top 500 Moira mains in top 500. One of them turned out to be a DPS only Moira main that got like 3 of his accounts banned and ended up having some pretty profane account names. Some of you guys in top 500 may know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to repeat. But this guy was in top 100, top 50 consistently with Moira flank only. Mercy just doesn't have that ability to squeeze the value out. Yeah. No, not that person. Yeah, it's still on Spilo too. You can still find it. But my point being is that Mercy right now, it's not that Mercy doesn't have carry potential because her kit doesn't provide that. In theory, you could change nothing about Mercy's damage output, but booster healing, booster damage boost, booster res, booster Valkyrie, and she could absolutely carry, but she still would have that. Yes, Satan, that's the person with variations of that name. And I think you're more likely to find her to be a relatively weak character, partly because she doesn't have that ceiling of output. Because if you get to the highest level of play, even if a character is hard, they will find every slice of the pie that you can squeeze value out of. They'll do it. Positioning, min-max, they'll do it. Cooldown management, they'll do it. Mercy mechanics. The funny thing is many of you guys may not know this, but back in 2017, 18, 19, there were occasionally, briefly, Mercy mains, I say, Mercy metas, or at least map metas at the highest level of play, Overwatch League contenders. There were briefly moments where Mercy would be viable for a map. For different situations, right? And I'm not just talking about like Moth meta, although that was also true, but just outside of that even. There were legitimately really good Mercy players. This is when Mercy had a lot more output of value. You could tell. These are professionals. You could tell. You could tell who played Mercy and who didn't. And it mattered too. It mattered, absolutely. I had the luxury of coaching Dredro once. You guys may be familiar with Dredro. And I don't know if we may have had a brief Mercy meta. Dredro was insane on Mercy. Insane support play. In fact, I think one of the most underrated support players in the history of professional Overwatch. And he got screwed over by some external situations with both Uprising and Paris. We won't delve into it. But Dredro was nuts. Phenomenal Mercy player and just a good support player, period. And that guy could aim too. So, but those moments were few and far between, right? Like where you were allowed and encouraged to show off what you could do. So, okay, well, we can keep going here. The easy spectator mode allegations. I find Mercy to be dynamic, engaging, and often stressful. Comparatively honest, just about landing your shots, cooldowns, and always being in a safe position with a good angle. I think that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but I'm sure that the opposite is true as well, where we all have simplistic views of Mercy, and I think Ana requires more rotations than people think, but fair points. Mercy required me to be watching every ally cooldown to boost and flying around like a maniac while not dying to make it all happen. Now, do you guys see the vision here? Whether this is good, whether this is necessary, you guys see it, though. Even you non-Mercy players can see it, right? It's there. There's potential there. But I wouldn't mind more skill expression or kit. Low skill floor is fine, but higher skill ceiling would be great. I mean, That's like one of the first things we said today, no? The new perks they added give more dimensions to her kit as it's Stadium, and I love it. More things to do and more ways to interact with the match. A relevant side note, it's relevant. We would also appreciate people would be a little bit nicer. I've never met a kinder, more welcoming community than this one, despite the Mercy Mafia allegations. That crazy TikTok Mercy or mean one of your games doesn't represent all of us. Most of us flux to what's needed. Most of us doing the best. Now, I tease a lot. I'm always making fun of support players. But there's nothing wrong with Mercy players, man. Like this community is targeted more so than they probably deserve. I have done many. I'm not saying that there isn't a vocal minority here that probably spoils the pot here, but I have done, J3. I have done many critiques of Mercy. Many. I personally have never had to deal with a Mercy Mafia. Never. Let me test something really quick here. I wish somebody would drop a tactical nuke on Mercy. So I do think a lot of it's perception. But and okay, I'm gonna say it, like there is a certain percentage of people that are going to be, sexist about it. Obviously, that goes without saying. Again, it's the vocal minority that are probably sexist, and it's the vocal minority that is going to be the Mercy Mafia. I think what it is, though, is people will take that and say, oh, that's the Mercy community. That's not the Mercy community. When you have however million freaking Mercy players, maybe not that many, there's, of course, going to be a subset. The reason that people don't talk about toxic Wrecking Ball mains, is because it's like this much compared to the Mercy community. This much. You know what I'm saying? What's more interesting is how many... Okay, I'm not going to do this. I was going to say, what would be more interesting is conjecturing which smaller percentage of mains are toxic despite being a smaller percentage. But I'm not going to say anything about that. I will tastefully keep my silence. Okay, yeah. Let's keep going. We got another 10 minutes here before Yeatle shows up. Thanks for reading. Tiger, excellently written post. Thank you so much for taking the time to write this up. I apologize to any Mercy mains right now that in this post put their heart and soul into a post that I may or may not get to. That sucks. I hope it was worth the satisfaction of you putting your time and your thoughts into this. Hope that writing it just was reward in of itself. And I hope that I don't miss any crucial ideas here. It's just one of those quantity things. So thank you guys so much. What did I miss? Somebody says Spilo 4A and then it cuts out. Oh, for IO from Dota 2. I don't. That's an interesting idea though. Honestly today, I'm not as completely interested in providing strict solutions. As much as I'd love to do that. I think we have some ideas already floating around that maybe you guys have sniffed up just a wee bit. But I think the concept here is that this would be more like, hey, Blizzard, there are so many ideas and solutions already out there, whether in this freaking thread, in my videos, in Niandra's videos, Stadium aspects, and I'm sure Blizzard's aware of that. But it is, I guess this is more, just as much for the community as it is for running it up the flagpole, IO has an even worse pocket problem. All right. Mercy's viability completely depends on the skill of your DPS. This has been an issue for pretty much ever. Obviously, hyperbole, gosh. Not really, but also more so than, any other support or DPS. Yeah, true. Remember, we talked about the gray. Mercy's the gray. We need more black and white. You need more risk. You need more opportunity to throw the game. Like, see, that's the thing, guys. Like, you have to be okay with just throwing the game. Shut up. I'm sorry. You just have to. I'm not saying that we need to go to Doomfist level, especially TPS Doomfist level, right? Call it feast or famine, right? I think that's the opposite extreme. But you can't have a character that is just kind of inoffensive. That's just not good enough. Because it's not only not a great game design, but it's also not very interesting for the person playing the character. It's a balance. It's tricky, you know? I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. If your DPS are underperforming, Mercy becomes a throw pick, right? And when a hero is I wouldn't say that she becomes a throw pick, but a lot of your utility becomes a lot less interesting. And when a hero is overperforming, Mercy takes the blame because of the damage boost. She needs a soft rework. So it's ironic here that because she doesn't have enough specific autonomy with the black and white here, then occasionally, I guess she does fall into the black or white, where like a large part of her utility just doesn't matter as much. So she ends up with the same exact problem of feast or famine, despite not really having a feast or famine kit by her personal expression. Man, it's tricky, isn't it? I love playing Mercy and she is fun, but she needs her own identity beyond pocketing DPS, even if that means losing some of her abilities that we love to use. I mean, if anything, I think more is more here. I think you guys would probably agree with Mercy. I think more is more. I mean, she needs more. I mean, Mercy needs some cooldown management. You know what I'm saying? Mercy needs some movement and some text and some stuff. A cooldown that isn't used every, 2.5 minutes? They said 4 per 10. You know what I'm saying? Even her weapon isn't particularly useful because of how slow the projectile speed is. What do you see the vision of Mercy as a hero? For me personally, Mercy as a hero's main focus is to stay alive, to peel and support a team. I quite like the triage support idea the devs have in her, but in my opinion are failing to deliver on it. Notice that a lot of people are very obsessed with staying alive with Mercy and at the same time movement. Her movement, her ability to peel for herself by being almost untouchable in the heat of battle by using myself as bait to allow my team to make plays. I quite enjoy risky reses as well. Again, you're noticing risk here, risk. So I had a session not too long ago with a gold Lifeweaver player on console. And I've coached this guy from bronze. I used to be a bronze console Lifeweaver, now he's gold. Way more proactive, doing some stuff. And we had this discussion about taking little baby angles with Lifeweaver. Not like, flanking, but like little baby angles. And the reason why that's important to do with Lifeweaver when you're not playing versus hard dive is because if you're playing like a poke mirror, you have 275 HP, you have life grip, you have pedal, you have dash, you have a perk that gives you permanent 10 healing per second, and basically none of it's useful in these sniper poke matchups. So what do? He's playing Circuit Royale. He's got playing versus Bastion Ash. How do you do? Well, you got to present yourself as bait. You got to go, hey, look at me, right? You got to take the high ground and poke him from here, pedal yourself up and then dash out, right? You're built to absorb pressure. You got the beef. Lifeweaver's a Giga Chad, right? He's got a ton of survivability. So if that survivability isn't being pressed through dive, then that utility is wasted. And so you have to force the value of your utility. You see this sometimes with Baptiste and poke mirrors too. Whereas if you don't really have a tank to pocket, like you're playing Bap with Wrecking Ball, you need to be forcing your cooldowns on yourself. And so Mercy's kind of in a similar situation. What do you do when you're playing poke, Mercy, whatever, and you're not rewarded for situational damage boost, and you're not really rewarded for movement? Your survivability, your bait, your ability to use yourself to move around quickly, and your speed, it doesn't matter anymore. And that feels so unsatisfying. Right? So this is fun. Passive, beta, MercyMains. Right, guys? All those betas love the risk. They love the heat of the battle and making plays. Right? So this is why our perception, I don't think, of the average Mercy main is correct at all. You know what I'm saying? It's the same kind of analogy I said with Genji and Mercy players. They love the same things about their character. I'm not saying that for every Mercy main, but certainly these ones, they want risk. Give them blood, let them to move. Heat of the battle. It's what makes games like Overwatch fun. What do you not like about Mercy's current design? How team reliant she is? We're seeing some of the same stuff over and over and over again. And again, I told you guys, this is a content idea that isn't, optimized for engagement and new creative spicy takes and people throwing desks. My point is that we're kind of all on the same page here. All right, so is Yeatle, you around? I know Yeatle's been doing his Freya grind. Is he in a ranked game, y'all? Yeatle's waiting for you? Okay. All right, let me give him a call here then. So if you guys don't know, Yeatle is ex-Contenders player, longtime streamer, phenomenal ball player back in the day. Now a big streamer and somebody I really respect, not just with his knowledge of the game. He's played a million different characters to Grandmaster, but he's very well spoken and very reasonable. I didn't want somebody that hates Mercy just for the sake of hating Mercy. I wanted somebody that could kind of frame their arguments well and fairly, and I think Yeatle's that guy. So, Yeatle. Yo, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing, man? Well, let me ask you a really quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Would you rather have 5 grapes? All right, these grapes are like the kind of grapes that you usually throw away, right? They're at that point where they start to get bruised up and all that.
Yeah.
Or you eat a banana 2 days past how you like your banana. So it's like that banana's doing kind of bad too. It's like really soft.
See, I'm such a coward here because I don't like super brown bananas, even though they technically are sweeter. You know what I'm saying? So I I don't love bananas, period. So it'd just be like a neutral banana. But 2 days past means that it's like kind of browning, but it's still safe. Bad. You get what I'm saying? It's still safe though. Now, if you were a big brown banana fan, you'd be in trouble. Is what I'm saying. But I'm a super basic dude, so I'll take it. I think grapes are just they're like little nuclear bombs. You never know what you're gonna get, and it's never good. I love grapes until I don't, and I'm like, and you never can tell. It's. Yeah,
I like them when they're really sour. You know, like sometimes the little tiny ones are like super sour out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I like those. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, it's too bad. Grapes have such potential to be an A tier fruit, but they always just kick you right in the pants when you least expect it. So
yeah, definitely
sucks.
mixed.
All right, Mercy, we've already been yapping for a little bit here. We've kind of framed everything nicely. Word on the street is that not only do you not like Mercy, you don't like playing with or against Mercy, and you've been banning her pretty frequently, which doesn't exactly put you in the minority here. I respect your ability, not just your opinion, but your ability to kind of communicate ideas. And we've already had a pretty good consensus of why most people dislike Mercy. But why do you dislike Mercy? What about her just drives you nuts?
I think it's very similar to why people don't like playing Mercy. But the main thing is that I don't like the kind of gameplay she enables with other DPS, right? I don't want to play, if I'm playing, no matter what role I'm playing, I don't want to play against Pharah Mercy, Echo Mercy, Sojourn Mercy, Widow Mercy, whatever it be. I don't like that 2v1 scenario that goes on whenever there's a Mercy and another DPS. I think it's just annoying.
Question for you is, when you say that though, you do realize that it's a 2v1, right? You're not expected to win a 2v1. Would you prefer a Zenyatta Pharah instead of a Pharmacy? If so, why? What changes about the dynamic here?
I think it's the idea that you could still win the duel and then not win the duel. You know what I mean? You get the kill from across the map, she gets rezzed, or they get rezzed, whatever the hero is.
I see.
I think that's what makes it really annoying, as well as just I don't know if it still does it, but does damage boost still push certain heroes past a threshold this far, 2-tap with a damage boost? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I mean, it definitely changes some thresholds for sure. For sure. Do you think it could also be that the type of character that is being damage boost frustrates you as well? You immediately, Sojourn, Echo, Pharah, immediately come to mind, especially Sojourn as of recently, Pharah historically. Is it just a hero preference for you as well?
I don't mind Pharah or Echo when they don't have a Mercy. I think it's fine. Because it seems like it's a lot more reasonable to take the duel. If they just have a Zen Orb, you could still just double dink them or whatever it be. And then they won't get rezzed. But the Sojourn scenario, I do just hate Sojourn. So so occasionally a hero, but more often just what the Mercy allows them to do, and then even forgiving their mistakes afterwards. Do you play with Mercy much? What is the experience of playing with a Mercy globally, and specifically also playing with a Mercy pocket? I've definitely had some games with Mercy. It kind of depends on what I'm playing. Like, I don't like having to have a Mercy either. So I'm definitely the person that just doesn't like Mercy in my games, period, for various different reasons.
Sure, sure. So talk to me
Yeah,
about
I don't
those.
like.
For
So I
for
don't like
you.
playing DPS and having a Mercy pocket, because then it makes it so that if I take a flank and I do nothing on that flank, that's two heroes that are doing nothing on the flank.
So it's
So
more of
it
a
makes me
responsibility,
not
more
want to hit that
pressure.
flank. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you think it's more psychological, or is it actually just change the strategy to something that you're not used to?
I definitely do think it changes the strategy, because I can like draw resources on the flank and it's good if I make it out or whatever. But like if me and Mercy are there and we're not actually getting kills, it's like, all right, well, we're kind of trolling.
So it
We're both trolling here.
screws your math off. Where normally I have something called the Kevster principle. If you're one person pulling two people's resources, you just live. But when you're
Yeah.
two people with a Mercy, it's you need a elimination or at least two people's resources. Otherwise, you're throwing the fight.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that might change how you see these or how you position. Okay. How about when you're not being pocketed? Do you ever feel like any frustration or break points, maybe playing tank with a Mercy or playing a flanker DPS? I know this, you might have to kind of think back a little bit here, maybe pull something out. If not, it's fine.
Yeah, no, if I'm playing like tank or some kind of flanker, I mean, I just don't interact with my Mercy at all for the most part, except, I mean, if she heals me a little bit or if I get rezzed. But I think they pushed her healing to a point where it's like, it's kind of alright to have a Mercy to heal me.
Okay.
Not the best. I'd still like, if I have a Mercy, I'm thinking, okay, this Mercy and whatever DPS she's gonna pocket, gotta go do some shit elsewhere, and I gotta like kind of play around that. Like, I gotta not soak up all the heals and etc.
We were talking earlier about black and whites and the kind of extremes of gameplay and how you can have a Mercy player that doesn't really have the carry potential, but also it's harder to throw with Mercy. And yet we also kind of realized at the same time that Mercy, if she is playing that pocket playstyle, is an amplifier of either somebody that's popping off or somebody that's fumbling the bag. You're kind of describing it as a DPS player. You're not appreciating the pressure and the necessity to do so much, right? But then when I asked you as somebody that's not being pocketed, you're kind of describing Mercy is almost not even, she's not even there. She doesn't even impact you at all. In fact, you're calculating how do I play basically down a support. So it's two opposite extremes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Do you normally like factor in your supports when you're not playing with Mercy, like with Zen, Ana, Bap, Lucio, Juno, any of these heroes? Do you think about them when you're playing with them as a tank or a DPS that's not being pocketed?
If I'm playing tank, I definitely will be a little bit more conscious if we have like Zen brig heals or like any small amount of heals, or like of course the support matchups, like if they have anti, we have cleanse, whatever it be. So I'll think about that, and I'll also think about how I'm going to play around my support ults. Like Kitsune is going to be a fight win if I'm on Zarya, for example.
Sure.
But I guess with like, I don't think about Mercy's Valk because I don't see it as like, all right, this is going to be the ult that's going to win us the fight.
Again, is it just because it doesn't change your decision making that much? Is that why?
Yeah, kind of. It doesn't. Yeah, sure.
Sure. And then when you have a Mercy not pocketing you, the only decision that it changes is that I just can't do very much.
Okay. Sounds about right.
What do you feel about Rez? How do you feel about Rez?
I think Rez is fine. The only thing that bothers me about Rez is she reses within line of sight, but then she breaks line of sight. I think that can be
grace
really
period.
annoying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just being able to break line of sight on the res, because then it's like if I killed someone from across the map, that res is impossible to deny. Unless I'm like some super hyper speed hero, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. And I think that's kind of annoying.
Sure.
Because like, well, that didn't take any effort from the Mercies. Just res, just press E.
What do you think about her beam, healing output, damage boost output? Are those things that you think are balanceable? I don't know how much thought you've put into this. I'm not asking you to come up with rework solutions here, but just give me your emotional first cut response to both of those things.
So I think healing beam is fine. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. It's the damage boost that I have a problem with. And I feel like that scenario where I explained like 1 versus 2, the pharmacy, for example.
Yes.
I feel like taking that interaction and not necessarily winning the duel, but pulling resources from those two would feel a lot better if damage boost was a cooldown. If it's like I'm taking a duel, oh, I see she just blue beamed the Pharah. The Pharah does like a nano effect or something, right?
Sure.
Now I just leave, and I got that whatever second cooldown out, that 10, 12-second cooldown. There we go. I got my what do you call it? My advantage in this.
Sure.
I did something in that interaction rather than I just got forced out, and now they're just gonna walk on my team.
Sure.
Whatever it be.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. On a scale of Genji, like early season 9 ball Genji tracer meta for you to season 8 Malga meta, how horrible is it to have Mercy meta at the higher levels for your personal taste?
Like, are you talking about like overall Mercy metas? Or are you talking
overall
like
Mercy metas?
Mercy meta?
Overall Mercy metas.
I don't remember them ever being that bad, to be honest. I mean, I know that that's probably a hot take because I feel like, yeah, I don't. Maybe because I played ball most of the time around this time period she was meta. I don't remember them ever being too bad, except for Mercy Sojourn. I hated that, but I don't know if that was like a true meta or just a ladder meta.
Sure. But I guess that's my point here. Whether it's a true meta or a ladder meta is true meta for the vast majority of players, right? So maybe not in GM, but what was your impression of the Mercy Sojourn?
Yeah, I hate that. I hated that. I mean, it just amplifies my already hatred for one-shots in the game. That's
on a scale of 1 to Malga, though. That's the question. Because every meta is hated, right? So,
again, this is like I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but personally, I think it's like a 10. It's like the worst of the worst. I just don't. I got to think against one-shots. I think they're the worst thing in the game. I think Widow one-shots. I think even though Hanzo's not played as much, Hanzo one-shots, and then Sojourn just like that on crack. So it's like I hate this. It's the worst version of Overwatch for me.
Okay. That's absolutely fair. Are there any questions in my Twitch chat for Yeatle? I don't, Yeatle, if you have anything else to get off your chest here. I mean, if there's nothing else to say, we don't need anything else to say, but I'm going to see if there's any other questions here. Anything about Mercy that you wanted to get off your chest or discuss, or ideas or principles or apologetics, or like what comes to mind, if anything?
I think that what they should do with Mercy is they should somehow keep her kit same-ish, but introduce something that like makes her skill ceiling way higher. Because I think a big issue a lot of people have is there's just, at least from the majority of the player perspective, she's not a very skillful hero. And I wouldn't want to play Mercy because I also don't deem her as very skillful. Movement's not enough to me. I think she needs more. For me, like, I think if a majority of the players think, yeah, I kind of want to play Mercy, or Mercy would be really fun to play here, then I think that would change the perception on how frequently she's getting banned. Because I think right now it's like no skill and just enables bullshit.
Sure. So you're actually okay with Mercy as like an entry-level character, but just give her something more skill expressive as she moves up the ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's actually a pretty common, popular opinion, I would say.
I think it's the best win-win. Like, if you want to make Mercy players happy as well as the general player base, it's the best thing you could do, I think.
Sure. What sauce do you use to mix your tuna? YouTube chat wants to know.
I don't like tuna. Sorry, YouTube chat. I let you guys down.
You come up with it. Well, hey, we had to return the favor of goofy questions. So, yeah. All right, Yeatle. Tomato sauce. Okay, there you go, chat. All right, Yeatle, I appreciate it. Good luck with your Frey climb. How goes it?
Oh, it's rough, man.
She's hard, isn't she? She's freaking hard. Where are you at, Masters 3?
I'm in Masters 3. I think, actually, I might have just got demoted to Masters 4.
She's tough.
The buffs didn't help. The buffs are huge. Tough. I think those buffs are big, but I don't know. I can't.
The problem with the buff was like they increased the frequency of that burst action, but the fact that you have to use your dash to get your bolt reset does throw off your aim and makes it kind of inconsistent. It's good that that's there, otherwise it'd be way too easy of a one-shot combo, but it is not near as easy as people think it is. But that's maybe
she's tough.
Also the ultimate, man, like wow, there are certain situations when it just doesn't do anything. So
yeah. Hey, maybe we got to come back for a Freya talk soon.
maybe. All right, man. Have a good rest of your stream. Appreciate your time, brother.
Take it easy, dude.
See you too.
Peace.
All right. Well, that was short and sweet. Doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. More of the same. Yo.
Hi. Give me 1 sec. I need to make it so they can also hear you on my end.
Okay, that's fine. Freaking hate this Mercy skin, man.
Which one?
The freaking, I don't know, what's the one with like the Satan one? Not the devil one, but like she's like the evil one. Like, look at my stream. What is that one called?
Oh, do you mean, is it her mythic or no?
Yeah, I think it's the mythic.
Oh, it's Vengeance. That's Vengeance.
Is it good? Or I don't like it.
You don't like it, really?
No, I don't like it. It's
Why don't
just
you like it?
She's like, I don't know. It's like techno or technological. I don't know. I think like she looks better when she's like mythical or like massive and stuff. I don't know. I can't really describe it. I have perfect taste, so I refuse to elaborate.
No, I mean, it is like a very different skin for her. I kind of think that it's cool because of that, because it's like such a different route that like we would ever see for her.
That's true. I can admit that. Okay, so I sent you the recap here. We already had Niandra's opinions. We've gone through r/MercyMains, which was excellent. We had Yeatle gripe and complain. And now we're going to have...
Oh, no.
yeah. I mean, you know, Yeatle, the guy just cries constantly. And now we're going to have your opinion on things. And I think the consensus and the consistent theme you've seen so far is that most folks kind of agree, touch on similar points. So we'll start with, like, you know, the first question I sent to you here, which was, what do you see as the vision for Mercy, even if it's not necessarily shared obviously with the Blizzard community or the Blizzard development team?
I've always thought that like the hero vision for Mercy in general, or like the hero fantasy, because I know like Blizzard and specifically for Overwatch, they like the idea of this hero fantasy. Like every hero has a fantasy in this game that like tailors to their gameplay and like really like builds into who they are as a character.
Yes.
And I think for Mercy, a big part of that is her movement. And I know like this is like a long ways in the past now, but triage was something that encouraged Mercy players to have more of that movement and be like more active between their teams depending on like who you were helping, right?
So by triage, just for those in chat that don't know, that was the higher heal on critical health targets, basically.
Yeah, it gave you 50% more healing on allies that were under half HP. Mm-hmm. The big problem with that was when it got to Valkyrie, and then it was like 90 HP per second sometimes, and like that was too much, obviously. Yep. But it did encourage this main idea that Mercy is this like hero that moves between different heroes, and like you really utilize her flight. I feel like that is a big part of her character, and I feel like if you talk to any Mercy player, they're mostly okay with you getting rid of anything else as long as you like keep her movement.
Sure. Can I chime in really fast here as well? Because obviously I've coached a lot of heroes, and I coach all the support heroes top level. Yeah. And that's actually, despite common misconception, that is not something that most other support heroes do. Lucio doesn't rotate, move around as much as people think at the highest level. And Kiriko doesn't either as well. She does some, especially with the new like shuffle perk, but having her being basically rotating, moving around constantly would be actually really unique compared to other supports in terms of how she would be played.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is like, okay, when I first started playing Overwatch, I did play a bit of Lucio. Don't think I was very good at it. Still, I'm not good at that hero. But same. Like his movement, like it's so different from Mercy's. And so people have asked me in the past, they're like, oh, well, if you like movement, like why don't you play Lucio? And I'm like, it's just so different. Like it's so entirely different.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the movement is different? What about the movement appeals to you? Because we use the term movement pretty largely. Obviously, like you touched on the difference between Lucio and Mercy. Dare I say, including Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 movement, what aspects about both do you like or dislike? And what do you think the larger portion of the Mercy community likes about her movement and or dislikes about her movement?
I think the main thing that they dislike about her movement right now is that it has 2 cooldowns. And by that, I mean, if you just use Guardian Angel itself, you'll get a 1.5 second cooldown, right? Mm-hmm. But if you crouch or jump at any point in time, it adds another 1 second onto it, which makes it a total of 2.5 seconds. Yeah, a full 1 second.
Oh, I thought it was half a second.
Nope. If it was half a second, I would be so happy. You have no idea.
Oh. So you're saying just a raw GA is 1.5, but using any tech, which is the space directional change or super jump, is going to add an extra second. So that's 67% more cooldown. Which is significant. Wow. Yep. Okay.
It used to be 100%. It used to be 1.5 seconds and 1.5 seconds for a total of 3 seconds. Until very recently did they like change that one.
Interesting. Okay,
And
that's crazy.
even then, it doesn't feel that great. I would honestly like to see either it go down to like obviously we used to have a 1 total cooldown that was just the 1.5. I'd honestly like to see it go to just be back to a flat cooldown with like a 1.8 seconds or 2 seconds as like a medium compromise kind of thing, rather than having these like 2 separate cooldowns.
It
but if
begs
they
the
really
question
wanted to
why.
keep that,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but why do you think, is there a specific reason that you could see why they punish you for using tech? Is it that you could spam tech too often, or is that, I wonder if that's a deliberate design choice.
I feel like it was a deliberate design choice only because there was like, so when Overwatch 2 first dropped, you were able to have a lot of influence over stalling with Mercy's, like the way that her movement is much more 3-dimensional in Overwatch 2.
Yep.
You can utilize that to your benefit to stall a lot more. And I think that was a little bit too powerful in players' minds. So I do think people were like, oh, we're having a hard time hitting her. Like, it's, you know,
Does she have the
it's too
self-heal
much.
passive too? Like the ability to heal herself as a percentage of the healing that she does to other targets?
She does. When Overwatch 2 first came out, she had that passive as well as her normal passive. I can't remember what it was called anymore. But her normal passive was basically just like she got more healing in general just for like being Mercy because she doesn't have the ability to like self-heal herself. But the devs eventually thought that it was like kind of boring, I think, having both of her passives just be like, oh, you heal yourself. So they introduced sympathetic recovery, which is like when you're healing people who are missing HP, you also get healing off of them.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that like stalling problem was due to both of those, not just the movement, but also the ability to self-heal while she's stalling, right? So
I definitely think that it was like that kind of combination.
Okay, so that part of movement feels really bad, which you're very specific about the cooldowns itself. So in terms of the tech itself, the super jump, the space, the just the GA way it flows, overall okay. But beyond that, are there additional concerns?
I would say that there are some concerns regarding like collision, because in Overwatch 1, I feel like collision wasn't as like particular, but in Overwatch 2, for some reason, Mercy's Guardian Angel tends to get caught on like almost everything. It's like kind of atrocious. If you collide with an enemy or if you collide with the slightest little bit of terrain, you lose all of your momentum.
Okay. And it's not just about the momentum is what often, that's what empowers things like your super jump or your slingshot, correct? So if you lose your momentum, it kills what happens afterwards as well. Okay.
Or it like incurs the cooldown, and then you're just kind of like a sitting duck, which is even worse, especially if you've like already jumped, then it's a 2.5 second cooldown, and you're dead.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What about Mercy's movement do you like? Like, what is largely liked by the community? It sounds like a lot of, forgive the lazy use of the term, but it feels like almost like ADHD rapid repositioning depending on who needs it at any point in time, basically constantly moving around, putting out small fires everywhere. That seems to be, from reading other MercyMains posts, kind of like the hero fantasy if everything worked out perfectly. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, Mercy ideally is someone that is being able to like help other people and being able to like be around the battlefield a lot. And I actually think triage heal, or not triage heal, but flash heal, sorry.
Yes.
Triage on the brain. Flash heal is actually really good in terms of forcing you to be more active, because it makes you like, okay, they changed it recently, where if your ally, I don't know if they put it in the patch notes yet, it was missing from the patch notes, but now it's on a now it's on a separate cooldown from Resurrection, and if you use it, if an ally is above half health, it's 50 HP, but if you use it when an ally is below health, it's 150 HP. So yeah, it basically becomes where that it encourages you, like if your tank is critical or something like that, to really quickly get into like a position to like help them for a second and then go back to your DPS or go back to your support, or like you could really do that for anyone, but I find that it's actually quite substantial on tanks, and like just being able to sometimes help your second support out like that before going back to like what you were doing beforehand.
Interesting. One of the two things that we were really looking at here, kind of building our pillars of what we want from Mercy from like a fundamental standpoint, without getting into the details of movement and so on, was number one, risk. Like, we want to reintroduce risk as the normal gameplay loop of Mercy, because it is satisfying for most people that play video games to have some sort of risk and reward.
Yeah.
How that would extrapolate into Mercy would be more movement, less pocket playstyle. But then the way to do that is we say we don't like pocket playstyle. Okay, so then what's the solution? We kind of found a vague framework of how can we interpret her utility in a way that you're rewarded for risk. And you discussed how with Flash Heal, that burst heal gives you a lot of motivation to move around and find value out of it when it's necessary.
Yeah.
But Niandra was talking a lot about how damage boost isn't in a vacuum a riskless ability. It just is in its current iteration, which means that it never expires, right? But we've talked about damage boost, reworking how that works. You and I have talked about movement speed, attack speed. We've talked about overhealth. We've talked about a lot of things. But
potentially,
but basically all revolving around like how can we reintroduce risk into the gameplay loop, which means we introduce movement, right? So what do you think? What are your thoughts on risk and how you could incorporate more of that triage mindset with or without healing?
Oh man. Okay. So this actually low-key might end up being like sort of controversial. I was kind of thinking about it earlier.
That's okay.
And I'm like, you know what? I actually wish that Flash Heal was like a standard ability for Mercy. I feel like Mercy right now is missing something that keeps her active other than her movement. You want to encourage her to move, but there's no reason for her to move a lot of the time if she's just like damage boosting a DPS behind a wall. There's no reward, there's no like incentive for going for risks. Like, it's so much easier to just play back and just help them and whatever. But when you add Flash Heal into the mix, it ends up being this thing where it's like, okay, is your support critical? Maybe you can like really quickly leave your DPS to go help them or help your tank, or if like your support's busy with something and you like don't notice someone, like they don't notice someone, like you can actually step in and be like, okay, I can go for this risk. Sometimes it's worth it. I can help very briefly and then I can go back to what I was doing. So that is one way. I feel like with her current kit, if you didn't want to change too much, it's something that promotes a lot of activity within her kit, and I think that's something that she's really missing.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Like, now the dynamic pills in me wants me to go, okay, I'm okay with that as long as Flash Heal also had like an offensive boost to the Mercy, so that you would sometimes use Flash Heal on a target that's full health to allow you to reposition faster or something along those lines. So there's like, the problem with Flash Heal only being Flash Heal is that there's really only one way to use the cooldown. You're correct that it forces you to move around a lot, but it doesn't necessarily change. There aren't multiple ways to use the cooldown. It just kind of becomes a glorified life grip in that aspect. So I would say, like, what if we put Flash Heal on a separate cooldown, which, by the way, I 100% agree with. Giving her an actual ability would be great. Also
I
talking
think
about,
she's sorely missing that.
Yeah, and it's also like, there's your transferable skill right there. Practicing more cooldown management, something that Mercy sorely like lacks, right? But then, okay, so Flash Heal, but then Mercy for 2 seconds after Flash Heal gains, I don't know, 25-30% movement speed and a self-heal herself. So maybe you have to decide, do I want to enable this target in the same decision-making loop that an Ana has to use with how she's using her cooldown, or Kiriko if she chooses herself now that her team suffers? I think something similar with Flash Heal would be interesting as well. I think we're definitely on the same page. Same page in that regard.
I think, okay, I do like the idea of a movement speed. Some kind of little reward being like, oh, hey, we encouraged you to like move out of position to do this thing, and you did that thing, so you get like a little reward for it.
Sure.
To like help you get out. As much as I like that, and I think that would be very nice, I'm sure that people would not be happy with it, and they would say that it's too much or it's too hard to hit her.
Could be.
So alternatively, I feel like maybe since you would end up taking Flash Heal off of the major perk, you could have a major perk that then maybe is something Guardian Angel related, because we all like really, really want something for Guardian Angel. And yeah, there's that minor perk that increases the distance, but it's like that does come in handy. It's the one that I pick more often over Angelic Recovery, or now Angelic Resurrection.
Sure.
But at the same time, it doesn't feel like that is the thing for Guardian Angel that people really want.
Yeah, I get that. I will say one thing, and maybe this is going to be my hot take, is that I think that the people that complain about Mercy's movement are probably more thinking about Valkyrie, where she does feel nigh unkillable with her speed and her self-regeneration. But that movement speed in of itself, if she is forced to move in open space, which inherently has risks, I don't care if people complain, to be honest with you.
No, you know
like,
what?
I think you should be rewarded for that, and I think you're being too cautious with it. To be honest, like, you know, what?
I've been burned many times before for expressing like a opinion without like giving drawbacks on that. So it's something that I'm very cautious about whenever I talk about Mercy. So that's probably that side of me coming out there.
The community can be definitely nasty about it, but I think that like from like a casual standpoint, we're either used to looking at a Mercy that is unhittable and unkillable in Valkyrie, or that I literally don't see at all. And so, you know, I think that there is some fair criticism of that execution. But honestly, no, I think if you were moving in a skillful and risk rewarding way, you shouldn't have to apologize for that, I think, at all, to be honest with you.
No, I agree.
I think the question would be, you know, how can we get Mercy players to move like that? And one criticism I did hear from a source that I respect, Coach Realth, is he talks about how he feels that maybe the floor of some of Mercy's movement can be almost a little too easy. Now, I'm not the expert in that regard. You are. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that. Is the floor ceiling of what Mercy can do with movement, not whether you're rewarded for it, but what you could theoretically do, is there enough complexity there?
I actually, you know, this is interesting because it kind of reminds me about the conversation that people had when Super Jump went from this thing that you could do by like being able to press 2 buttons at the same time compared to what it is now. And we went through a lot of iterations of Guardian Angel to get to what we had at the Overwatch 2 launch. And a lot of people, the basis of that conversation was, oh, they took away her skill expression, now anybody can do it. But honestly, I don't think that ever hinged on being able to press 2 buttons at once. I think it's not how you do it, but what you do with it that's more important.
Do you think the ceiling is still there? That's the real question.
I think there's still a ceiling, especially like I feel like you could look at a Mercy that is like high ranked, I guess, or lower ranked, and I feel like you could definitely see significant differences in their gameplay through how they use her movement.
Right.
And I've had a lot of people that come to my stream as well and say that like they think Mercy is like her movement's really hard for them. Like I operate under the basis of different people are able to play different heroes at like different rates, I guess. Like for me, I find like people are gonna say this hero's easy. I find BAP hard. He doesn't work with me. I can't do it. But there's so many other people who are amazing at BAP, or there's people who are like fantastic at Doomfist, but then there's people like me who can't use him worth like a stick in the ground. So it's like I feel like at the end of the day, like the skill ceiling or like skill and stuff like that kind of comes down to the individual player who is like picking it up. That's true. I do think that there is a very big difference between someone that really knows her movement in and out and someone that just plays the character sometimes or is just like starting to pick her up.
Yeah, makes sense. What are your thoughts on direct output of damage pressure? Because this is a really controversial one. And I find myself more on the fence of I would like her to have some offensive damage utility, but maybe not in the traditional sense of like whipping out the pistol, although that probably should be more viable. But like, you know, utilizing her wings and some sort of offensive animation on a cooldown, or the staff whip, as we see that one all the time, right? Even some discussions about utilizing that goofy Junkenstein's Revenge, blowing up souls, right?
That one was fun. I can't lie. That was broken, busted, but still fun.
So basically off of a scale of balance. We'll ignore balance right now because you can always tune numbers till the cows come home. But where do you stand on that?
Well, okay. So I think because damage boost exists, that is sort of her offensive
Right.
pressure. The one
Right.
biggest drawback to Mercy is like, if she pulls out her pistol, that's all she's doing, and she's not able to contribute to her team otherwise. And in a lot of situations, that's really terrible. So I feel like the benefits of Mercy being able to like utilize her movement and not have to like aim specifically and not having to do like certain other things is that like the sacrifice for being able to do things or not do things is like you don't have that offensive capability yourself. You have to like bank on your teammates as you are like assisting them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. It's an amplification, but you don't have. We talked about this earlier, where it's like you can amplify certain things, but you don't have that ceiling of if everybody is doing things wrong, you can't apply direct pressure yourself at all.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's one of the trade-offs for her being able to be so mobile and be like who she is.
Sure. So I think that there's that feeling of helplessness that probably, plagues a lot of Mercy players, which, is, we don't want to get into the, like, you can climb out of gold playing Mercy. Like, I think that's definitely true. But at a certain point, at least knowing that there's something that I could have obviously done better to assist my team that's not always present with Mercy and compared to other supports.
Yeah, because it's not like, oh, if I had just like aimed better here, or if I had just like used this thing differently. It's sort of just like, okay, well, I tried to manage my teammates as best as I could, but because my offensive capabilities either weren't being utilized correctly or I wasn't like managing them right, then obviously you sort of feel like, okay, well, what can you do?
Twitch chat, one of my viewers, Exeoplit, says amplify but not agency. And I think that's a good way of putting it. I think it is unique for Mercy to be an amplifier of other people's efforts, and I don't think that every character needs to be quite the Zenyatta archetype by any means. And I think like that's also kind of when we ask what type of offensive pressure, that's an important question. Does it have to be pistol? Could we really pull the hero fantasy into some creative new ways? I think the answer is yes, but I do think that there is a sliding scale, and maybe too far to the opposite extreme isn't great.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really nice to have some sort of offensive capability that is not tied to her pistol, and in current Overwatch that is being able to enhance other people, but it doesn't really leave a lot for yourself, which it's like one of the sacrifices playing Mercy is like if you know that you're like feeling helpless, you gotta like use your movement to hope for the best and kind of like dart in and out of those like situations. And I think because Mercy's moving so much, it's also a little bit hard to give her some kind of offensive, if that makes sense.
Yep. And I think it's important that I read something in my chat that also says hero fantasy stops so much progress for characters. And I think this is important for not you or your community, but a certain percentage of really every community have a certain way that they view a character. And regardless of whether that's quote unquote healthy for the player base as a whole, they marry to it and then blame hero fantasy. So I see a lot of people are like, oh, Mercy should be a low skill ceiling character. Mercy should have this because she's always had it, and I see the same arguments from freaking Roadhog players, It's like sometimes you got to be a little bit more creative with your hero fantasy and think outside the box. And so I think I'm not by any means Mercy pulls out a Glock necessarily or pulls out the machine gun and says, say hello to my little friend. That's going to be Mercy's new ultimate, But I do think that we could, okay, maybe that would actually be cool. But certainly we can look at Mercy and go, okay, there are things that Mercy canonically or whatever would do that we don't see right now, or could do that she's doing now, but could do better. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the way that I see it.
For example, there's some people talk about this, but in that, do you remember that one cinematic for Storm Rising where she like comes in and I think she saves Genji and she like blinds people with her wings or something like that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like there are things that Mercy can do in her kit that we obviously haven't seen or aren't in the game that we've seen in other places.
I just can't
I feel like
the Punisher, judge, jury, execution. It's just Mercy. Sorry, I'll continue. That's
you're good.
please, April Fools, next patch. Oh my days. Okay. But yes, there's lots of ways that they haven't really. They could have spread their wings maybe a little more.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. What was? Sorry, my brain.
No.
Track.
Trust me, you and me both. We were talking about offensive utility. We think we explored that one. So I guess to finish up here, any last requests, thoughts, maybe ideas? I feel like we're at a point in time now where like between you and me and Niandra and the community as a whole, there are so many, I think, relatively interesting ideas floating out there. I don't think we're at a lack of ideas right now. What maybe lacked was motivation. I think hero bans have forced potentially Blizzard's hand with this because now we have a very large percentage of players like yourself that can't play their character. And so now we're kind of being forced to reckon with Mercy's awkward position as a low skill floor and low skill ceiling character that just can't function at the rank that you want to play it, right? That's why you play Juno now. That's why you've been playing Stadium.
I mean, I've been playing,
needs to change.
Like, a lot of people don't know this, but Juno is actually my most played hero since she came out. Like that no other hero has ever done that, and that's partially just because of the way that people react to like having a Mercy on her team, or like whether it's consciously or not, people don't play or try as hard when they see a Mercy because they're like, oh, we just lose, or they have like this really defeatist attitude about it.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I agree completely. And I think it's a real thing because I feel it, you know? I'm playing tank, I get a Mercy player, and I'm like, well, I guess one of my DPS is going to, I hope they carry. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, and that's a relatively inoffensive reaction, not to mention some of the sexist revel that is at the other end of the spectrum, right? So it's like, it is a can of worms for all parties involved. And as difficult as the hero ban situation has been for you guys, I am thankful that it has maybe I'm being a little bit too optimistic here, but has forced potentially Blizzard's hand. Like, okay, we need to deal with this finally, because you have been suffering for years, not literally suffering, but like you're a high level player, you're a competitor, and you want to play freaking Mercy, and I'm not rewarded for moving. This sucks. What the heck, you know?
Yeah, no, I have definitely expressed my grievances throughout how Mercy has sort of been treated. And, you know, the devs always said, oh, we're looking at Mercy, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And then they kind of never did any of that. And, you know, it's so interesting because they keep trying to give her these abilities that sort of encourage her to heal in this triage sort of way. And it's funny because when triage was a thing, Blizzard was like, or the devs were like, we set out to do this thing. We did it. It works. It's great. Minus how it is in Valkyrie. It's a little too strong in Valkyrie. Sure. And instead of actually continuing on and iterating into it, they just scrapped it completely. Like, they even had a whole victory pose for triage. Like, it was a style that I'm pretty sure they really, like, were going to go with for Mercy. But then, it's slightly too strong, so we're not even gonna, like, just tune it down in Valkyrie and see how that is. We're just gonna get rid of it. Like, it really seemed like this was something that they were, like, confident in putting into Mercy's kit. It's something that they set out to do, they did it, and then they just got rid of it for no reason. Yeah, and I think, like, this is where I'll be a little bit more cynical here, and hope I don't come across as insulting to the development team, which I think has legitimately done a phenomenal job in the last couple of years. Yeah, but no, do not get me wrong. But there are, I've been having this conversation, I feel like, more recently. There are a couple of heroes that I don't think that the development team does as good of a job with. I don't know if there's as clear of a vision. I think Mercy falls in that category. I think Symmetra, I think May, and I think Doomfist even are characters that sometimes I just don't feel like there's a very clear vision of what they want to have done with them. And sometimes when changes happen, they're often the wrong changes, which, it's just tricky. You know, it's like, obviously that comes from my own bias and your own bias, and we all have our things that we like. But I do agree with you that at the very least, it can be confusing. You get mixed signals, I think, is the most frustrating part. It's confusing, it's frustrating, it's exhausting. Like, it's widely agreed that no one wants a Mercy on their team because they think she's useless, and they don't want her on the enemy team because if they have a good DPS, then she's just
It feels a little bit like
she-
gambling.
exactly.
Really, it's gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I agree with saying that the devs normally do a really great job, because I've seen it with all these other heroes. They're doing a fantastic job, and then it just feels like Mercy gets left in the dust or forgotten about constantly over and over again, despite being such a gripe within the community.
Yeah.
I think that her hero fantasy has really like been lost over these past iterations of her, and it's just really disappointing.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, it's easy for me because a lot of what I enjoy about the game stays intact, and if anything, continues to grow. But for somebody that is a Mercy main, it can be dark times indeed, especially right now. So, are you enjoying Stadium? I assume the answer is yes, because that seems to be a highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I've still been playing regular comp and whatnot, and because I do really enjoy Flash Heal. Sometimes when I'm in Stadium, actually, I'm like, wow, I wish I had Flash Heal. Like, I'm like, wow, this guy's crit, and I'm like, damn, if only I had Flash Heal. Frick.
Yeah.
Like,
Good.
Flash
Yeah.
Heal just feels like such a thing that should be part of her kit. It feels very natural for her, and it also alleviates that feeling of, you know, when you were saying like when you get on tank, you're like, oh, there's a Mercy, like, you know, that disappointment you feel.
It's the flexibility. It's the flexibility. Yeah.
I think it gives her more of an option than just like, okay, pocket your DPS, and then your reward kind of is like, okay, well, this person, you were able to help them stay alive, and then you can go back to doing what you were doing. But like, I don't know. I really like the gameplay loop that they added in with that. I think it's very good for her. I really do. But yeah, Stadium's been fun too. I like that there is something that extends her beam range on that, because honestly, I would rather have, for example, her minor perk, I would rather have an extended beam range than like an extended guardian angel range most of the time.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about like the perk preferences that you would have. There's like a lot of different ideas, and it'll be interesting to see if they go more into like more base kit changes or more perk changes. I would prefer, I'm sure as you would, a little bit of both.
Yeah, I would definitely prefer seeing Flash Heal move to her base kit, and then seeing a new perk come in that's major for her. I wanted to ask, since we're talking a little bit about perks, what's been the consensus so far today? Have you guys talked about the overhealth on res? What's been the consensus on that?
We actually haven't.
Really?
My little opinion of it is that now
ahead.
you can get the overhealth even if you cancel res, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
Which is not great. But I have less of an issue with it than I thought I would, because it rewards you for getting a successful res, which opens up these situations that you could get a successful res, and it feels like there's more of, again, we talked about that risk word, right? So I think overall it either has not been discussed, the people have talked with it, it seems that it's like, yeah, okay, makes res more viable in more situations that otherwise it wouldn't be. But it's not exactly like a life changer.
Yeah, I feel like I took it a few times at the beginning, and obviously, like, I am someone who goes for reses that I believe are safe. It's not often that I go for a res that I don't think I'm going to be able to get, or I'll like pop Valkyrie for it if I really need it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it doesn't really fit with my playstyle personally, and so I've kind of been interested to hear like what other people have thought about it, because I do think like there have been a few times where I'm like, oh, okay, well, it would have been useful here had I taken it. But a lot of the time it's like, yes, you're rewarded for doing the risky thing, and I think it's a good thing in theory. It's a good perk in theory, but in practice I feel like it doesn't get the same kind of use that the other perk does, which was Angelic Recovery's problem as well, and why I think they swapped that out.
Right. Well, it really comes down to opportunity cost with perks, right? It's not so much what it does, but what you're not choosing because you chose that instead. So I think in general, a lot of the conversation today was maybe even more outside of the box in terms of like, okay, can we just abandon this entirely and go in a different direction? Not necessarily res, but like, I think there are so many things when it comes to ideas with Mercy, which is great, but I don't even think we talked as much about iterating on Mercy right now, but thinking outside the box entirely. But yeah. Well, Skiesti, any last words? I'm going to frame that exactly as it sounds.
Any last words? Oh, man. I honestly just hope that from some of this discussion that the devs are able to sort of get a better idea about what people want her hero fantasy to be, what they like about Mercy, and just kind of try to get her back on that path. She's been really frustrating for the community and for Mercy players in general. I don't want to see like personally, I have always enjoyed the way that her staff works, the way that you can just like beam people and be able to look around and be able to focus on other things. Like I've something that I like to equate Mercy with is kind of like playing chess. Like you can see all your pieces and you can see all the enemy pieces and you can kind of like try to encourage them to move in certain ways by doing certain things, whether that's helping them via like damage boost or healing or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that is one aspect of her gameplay that is like where strategy kind of comes in. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, MercyMains should have to aim. I think that is where skill should come in. I don't agree with that sentiment just because I think that there are so many other things that you could do with her kit that would maybe encourage skill in different ways rather than touching that.
Yeah, I think the problem is also like transferable skills. So like if I was to play devil's advocate there, it's such that there really isn't any other character in the game, even including something that Ryan, that requires so little mechanical skill, at least in terms of the aiming. But that's okay maybe if she actually had more other soft skills like cooldown management or rapid positioning awareness stuff that as it is right now isn't
which is
as
stuff
demanded.
That she used to have.
Right. So
like,
it's
right?
like,
you
okay,
used to have that through her Guardian Angel.
maybe your aim
not
sucks, but at least now when you play your Mercy's band and you got to play Moira or Brig or Ana, your mechanics might suck, but you have a much better feeling of how cooldown management works and dynamic rotations and so on, so that you could bring some of those soft skills to the table right now. I think when some of the complaints about Mercy with lack of transferable skills come to play, it just feels that there's so many skills that she doesn't have that other heroes have, and I think that's the major concern.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to her having transferable skills, or at least for me, because, you know, I back in Overwatch 1, like, I did play Ana, I did play Moira some, like, you know, when Mercy was picked or whatever, or I couldn't play her, like, I was able to play other heroes, but the things that Mercy helped me with specifically was, like, general positioning, knowing, like, where my team stands, where I should stand, where my other support stands, knowing, like, game sense, being able to, like, see the battlefield from this kind of, like, I know we don't like to use the word spectator, but I would say, like, observer, because you are observing and you are making, like, strategic
it's
like
when you're forced to reposition,
your mind kind of thing.
When you're forced to reposition, we talked about it earlier, like the ADHD rotational stuff. Like that is a very important skill for support players. Even if you're playing a hero like Zen, actually, it's actually very important, and that's something that Mercy should teach, but probably doesn't. You get what I'm saying?
Well, it used to be. It used to be like rotations.
Sure.
And it used to be. Well, it still is. Like game sense and positioning and stuff. But yeah, the rotation stuff, not as much, unfortunately, after, because the more that you add on to her cooldown, like having the 2.5 second total, the less a Mercy player wants to use it unless they really, really have to.
Right, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And yeah, I think that's the real crime with the pocket playstyle, is it's really what takes away what makes Mercy unique, and also what makes Mercy fun for the person playing her. Yeah. So,
and there's no like encouragement to do the thing that does make Mercy fun.
All right,
anymore.
I got one more hot take for you. One more hot take for you.
We'll
I think nerfing Mercy to 225 was a terrible mistake.
I kind of agree with that. I wouldn't necessarily want to agree with that. Like, you'd never find me saying that on Twitter. But
I'm telling you, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I understand that, like, okay, if she has a self-heal and everything,
you're braver.
But like, you need to be rewarded you need to be encouraged for moving around. Like, let's nerf her damage boost or whatever else, but like there has to be some sort of a reward, and you just like they just chopped off 25 HP. I'm like, all right, well, I'm sitting behind a wall now.
Yeah, the 2.5 second cooldown plus the decreased health at 225, like the combination of those things really make you not want to have to move unless A, you're in Valkyrie, or B, you really have to, aka you're using flash heal and you need to go like help someone else, right?
Yes.
Like there's there's no more of that encouragement to do those things. And I think that's something that's like very, very sorely missing. I think that's what a lot of this just boils down to, is like, where's the encouragement to promote this hero fantasy? Like, it's been so lost by the wayside.
Yep, I 100% agree. 100% agree. All right, Skiesti, once again, any final words?
I don't know, just please do something to her that really encourages her hero fantasy. I miss playing Mercy and being like, oh yeah, like Guardian Angel's so fun, I'm moving around the battlefield, like I miss that. I freaking miss it. I see what the devs are doing for other heroes, and I just really want them to do that for Mercy. I know a lot of people make that joke like, oh man, Mercy's just here for the cosmetics, like selling cosmetics. And like, sometimes I can't lie, it's getting to feel that way.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that way at times, but I think that will only last so long before people are going to be like, well, I want to play this hero and it's going to be fun, or I'm not going to play anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think, I know we don't see statistics, but I genuinely think with the amount of people that I've heard say like, oh yeah, I don't really play Mercy that much anymore, I don't get to, like, I do think, like, the population of Mercy players has most certainly dropped off since like last year. And is that not concerning? Like, I'm sure the amount of people playing Mercy is less than it used to be. And for such a popular hero that like everyone always loves to play, like, I assume that numbers has got to have dropped, and isn't that concerning?
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, even if you aren't a Mercy player, like, improving this character's quote-unquote health is in your best interests, Yeah. So that you're not crying and screaming and kicking your feet in the air because you got a Mercy on your team, right? So,
or because you have to play against a super monster powered up DPS, right? Like,
Yep, 100%. Skiesti, appreciate your time, mate. Good luck with your rest of your stream and your stadium grind. We will have to see what happens the next few months. Fingers crossed.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate being able to talk about her. I love being able to talk about her and hopefully advocate for, some interesting changes that are good for Mercy and also for the community, hopefully.
Surely. So we're going to buff damage boost to 45% and cut her HP to 200.
Oh, yeah,
That's the strat.
Exactly. That's what we're going to do. Yep.
All right, see ya, Skiesti.
I can't wait.
Cheers.
See ya.
All right, that was Skiesti. Appreciate her time as always. Skiesti is a real one. Get to hang out, and she's a good egg. So it's nice to have her on. And I guess, chat, that kind of wraps it up here. I mean, we checked all the boxes here. Felt relatively efficient, straight to the point. Not as much fluff as even I expected, and I didn't expect much fluff. So yeah, that is all.